Good morning. This is WTVA Tupelo Columbus, operating on Channel 9 as authorized by the Federal Communications Commission. WTVA operates with an effective radiated power of 316,000 watts visual and 31.6 thousand watts aural from transmitters located 2.1 miles northwest of Woodland, Mississippi. Studios are located on Beach Springs Road, 2.5 miles north of the Tupelo, Mississippi city limits. WTVA operates the STL microwave relay stations WIL 79, 7025 to 7050 megahertz, WIL 80, 7075 to 7100 megahertz, WIL 81, 6975 to 7000 megahertz, and WIL 82, 6875 to 6900 megahertz. WTVA is owned and operated by WTWV Incorporated. Now, we invite you to stay tuned throughout the day.
In the news, at least 126 people are dead following an airplane crash in Cuba. More violence, more arrests in Virginia Beach. And President Bush puts the finishing touches on the drug speech he'll deliver to the nation tomorrow night. In sports, baseball's division races are getting tighter, and we'll have an update on Hurricane Gabrielle, which is gathering strength this morning over the Atlantic. I'm John Palmer, and this is Labor Day, September the 4th.
This is NBC News at sunrise.
Good morning. In Havana this morning, officials say there is just one survivor after the worst airline disaster in Cuban history. A Cuban jetliner carrying 126 people went down last night while attempting a takeoff in a thunderstorm. It ripped through a neighborhood less than a mile from Jose Marti Airport. 19 homes were destroyed, at least 63 people injured on the ground. The jet was bound for Milan, Italy, and Cuban officials say all but 2 of the passengers were German or Italian tourists. In this country, police and National Guard troops are patrolling the streets of Virginia Beach this morning after another night of violent confrontations between police and black students. NBC's Catherine Couric reports.
By early morning, these were the only people walking the streets of Virginia Beach. Just before 9 o'clock last night, hundreds of local and state police got into formation and moved in, clearing anyone in their path, no matter what.
Let me go!
The National Guard continued to patrol. SWAT teams secured this area and arrested a student, much to the horror of his girlfriend. Thousands rushed to their hotel rooms, showering police with bottles from balconies above.
I think the violence on all these cops is ridiculous. I mean, we're just out here we were just down there dancing, and then all of a sudden we see all these cops coming.
They're blowing everything out of proportion. People are going to Fort Lauderdale every year. I'm talking about for years. And I'm talking about they tear stuff up, but you don't hear about that.
Things got ugly last night, and they could get even more ugly tonight.
But merchants who saw businesses lose thousands of dollars when shops and restaurants were looted and vandalized the night before said they were glad police were here in such force.
I feel they should be here.
The police should be here.
The police, the National Guard, anything to give it help.
Although this year's Greek Fest ended in chaos, students who came here to Virginia Beach say it hasn't deterred them from trying again next year. In fact, some say they're even more determined to do so. Catherine Couric, NBC News, Virginia Beach, Virginia.
And there's been more violence in Colombia as the first shipments of U.S. military aid arrived to help the government's war with the cocaine cartels. A plane belonging to the State Department was damaged by a bomb Sunday at an airport about 500 miles northwest of Bogota. And 2 bombs exploded in Medellin, the center of Colombia's cocaine trade, at a hotel used by journalists. Police say no one there was injured. In Washington, the president's war on drugs is expected to result in some heated battles on Capitol Hill. While there is little controversy over the need to do something about the country's drug problem, there is considerable disagreement over how much it should cost and how it should be paid for. More from NBC News correspondent Sandy Gilmore.
Following his last full day of vacationing, the president returns to Washington today to finalize the administration's war on drugs, to be announced during a primetime speech Tuesday night. The strategy will call for going after the drug middleman, as well as the cartel leaders, and for an increase in aid and military advisors, such as those which the U.S. continues to send into Colombia. Over the weekend, administration officials conceded U.S. advisors would be at risk.
I said I can't guarantee that it's absolutely risk-free. The possibility exists that they would become targets for the cartel. There is some risk involved.
Overall, the package would cost $7.8 billion the first year. Some in Congress think it should be more and paid for by increasing taxes. But the president's chief of staff says the important thing is to get national involvement.
If people think that the old way of doing things, of throwing bushels of money at a problem is the way to approach the drug problem, then they're missing the point.
The administration's war on drugs faces its own battles on Capitol Hill, where hundreds of congressmen and senators will all have an opinion. One top administration official says, however, that the recent drug-related violence in Colombia has given the president's program a lot of momentum. Sandy Gilmore, NBC News, Kenny Bunkport.
And finally, on this Labor Day morning, the strike against the Pittston Coal Group is now entering its 5th month with no settlement in sight. On Sunday, Jesse Jackson appeared at a miners' rally in St. Paul, Virginia. NBC's Douglas Kiker has a report on that.
It looked a little like a country fair, but it really was a United Mine Workers Labor Day strike rally. And about 10,000 people showed up in the little Virginia town of St. Paul to attend it. The UAW strike against the Pittston Coal Group is 5 months old, and this rally was designed as a morale booster. The star attraction, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
I've marched with you, and I will go to jail with you because I believe in you.
Union leaders once again called for a ceasefire, a cooling-off period in this strike, but rank-and-file members believe their union's existence is at stake. So there's every indication the strike will continue. Douglas Kiker, NBC News, Washington.
In sports, Kansas City and St. Louis are making big moves as baseball's divisional races tighten up. Jimmy Cephalo in for Don Crickey has that and the rest of the day in sports after this.
Why do I enjoy Alpine Lace, low sodium and lower in cholesterol Swiss low cheese? Because it's delicious. And I want to take care of myself now, not when I'm 50.
At your deli, delicious Alpine Lace Swiss low. Why wait till 50?
Mouth has a terrible time waking up in the morning. Come on. You know why? Most cereals bore it to sleep, but not Quaker Natural cereal. My mouth gets a charge of whole grains, honey, almonds, raisins, a bunch of different textures, a blast of different tastes. That's reveling, man. My mouth will never get back to sleep. Once you taste Quaker Natural, everything else is just cornflakes. And now there's softer, juicier raisins and dates. Ooh, I think my mouth is gonna kill.
The evaluation committee is in your office.
This is my husband, Paul. He's under a lot of pressure. But now he's taking charge of his health, eating right by cutting down on cholesterol and saturated fat. That's why I cook with Puritan, with no cholesterol and proven 94% saturated fat-free. Better than any other kind of oil.
Your wife called sneakers before dinner?
Hey, Mr. Principal, carry your books?
Anytime.
Paul's feeling great, and I am too.
Puritan. Make it his oil for life.
My boyfriend Eddie noticed my skin. He said I look luminous.
Dove contains 1/4 moisturizing cream. It won't dry your face like soap.
With Dove, my face definitely feels softer. Luminous. It's a great word, isn't it? Eddie's a writer.
And now, laboring at the sports desk on this holiday morning, here's Jimmy Cephalo. Jimmy?
Good morning, John. It'll go down as a dubious record in baseball. It'll be the beanball battle of baseball, actually, but a better description might be poor pitching. The Rangers and Royals tied a major league record for hit batsmen. A combined total of 7 players were beaned in Arlington. There was just one fight, which might be the true record of the day. Here's a look at beanball number 7. It occurred in the 8th inning when Craig McMurtry hit Mike McFarland. He charged the mound, and the obligatory shoving match ensued. McFarland was ejected. They got back to playing baseball after that one, and the Royals continued their charge in the AL West with a 13-2 win over Texas. The Royals remained just 2.5 back of Oakland. The A's set the pace by shutting down Milwaukee. California continued its slide, losing to the Yankees. The Angels have now lost 4 straight. Minnesota blasted Toronto 9-1, but the Blue Jays still lead the East by a game over Baltimore. The Orioles were dropped by the White Sox. Seattle slipped past Boston, and Detroit had an easy time with Cleveland. In the National League, the Giants have opened up a 6-game lead in the West. They blanked the Mets on Sunday, while the Astros were beaten by St. Louis. The Cardinals, meanwhile, pick up a full game in the East because the Cubs were beaten by Atlanta. Chicago's lead is trimmed to just a game and a half despite a pair of homers from Andre Dawson. This 2-run shot in the 4th gave the Cubs a 4-3 lead. But the Braves came back with 5 in their half of the inning. Dale Murphy single passed to diving Luis Salazar. That brought Odabe McDowell across. The Braves went on to win 8-5 win. Elsewhere, Montreal blanked the Dodgers. Kevin Gross with a 6-hitter. San Diego outscored the Phillies 9-5, and the Pirates topped Cincinnati by a score of 3-1. In tennis, the career of Chris Evert is not over yet, although the 34-year-old Evert is retiring after the U.S. Open. She played flawless tennis on Sunday, beating Monica Seles in straight sets. Chrissy, here in the near court, used the forehand winner to free Seles on this particular point. She advanced to the quarterfinals with a 6-love, 6-2 win. On the men's side, Boris Becker advanced by beating Michael Pernfors. Becker, here in the far court, dropped the first set but rallied to take the final 3 and move into the quarters. In horse racing, a bit of a surprise at the Arlington Million. Steinlen was a $50,000 supplementary entry, though blew past the favorites down the stretch. Dave Johnson has the call.
Silver challenges. Here comes Steinlen looking for racing room. And down the stretch they come. Battling on the front end. Steinlen on the inside. Takes the man. On the outside, Lady in Silver. Here they come to a wire. On the inside, Steinlen by 3/4 of a length.
Steinlen earned $600,000 for his half-length win. And finally, this is cut-down day in the NFL. Teams must trim their rosters to 47 players, the limit for this weekend's opening round of games. And that is sports. John.
Thank you, Jimmy. Have a nice day. And when we come back, the Labor Day forecast and an update on Hurricane Gabrielle. Joe Whitty is next on NBC News at sunrise.
If you've got dental work, you've got 3 great reasons to chew Freedent. You know, Freedent won't stick to your dental work, and Freedent keeps your breath fresh. But maybe you didn't know Freedent moistens your mouth, too. So if you hate a dry mouth like I do, chew Freedent.
Freedent's the one that took the stink out of gum, and Freedent moistens your mouth. Yeah, moistens your mouth, and freshens your breath while you chew.
Non-stick Freedent moistens your mouth and freshens your breath. If you want to taste something truly sensational, just look for the NutraSweet Swirl.
Oh, you start me up, don't ever quit. NutraSweet's the one, give me just a little bit. Ooh, I need a taste of, yeah. NutraSweet, give me just a taste.
NutraSweet, why so many things taste so good.
Leave me alone, just let me groove with my tube. Don't just plop in front of the TV because you've got nothing else to do. Gotta have that, Mama, can I buy that? Watch out for overeating. Don't be a couch potato, not me.
Whatever we learn in life, we learn from people who know more than we do. They're called teachers. We need about 45 teachers just to get through high school, 62 on average to finish college, 75 to become a lawyer, and more than 100 to get through medical school. Thanks to teachers, we can be whatever we want in life. The fact is, the more you know, the more you owe to the people who taught you.
The career of the Air Force's Titan 34D rocket ended in a blaze of glory during the night. The last of the Titan 34Ds to go into space shook the ground and lit up the sky along Florida's east coast. A secret Pentagon payload was riding atop the rocket as it lifted off from Cape Canaveral. And now, as promised, a look at the holiday weather. Here's Joe Whitty. Joe?
Morning, John. Good to have you here this morning.
Thank you.
Had a good vacation, I hope?
Yes, it was lovely.
Great.
Just lovely. Wonderful weather.
Well, there's going to be great weather over most of the country today. Beautiful, crisp out west, though, 30 degrees at Big Piney, Wyoming, but a warm 86 degrees at Galveston, Texas. And the view from space shows lots of thunderstorm clouds over the upper northern plains. They're moving to the east. So the radar indicates underneath those clouds, red and black areas, some torrential rains over parts of Nebraska and Iowa. Now the storms pushing to the east will expand towards the Central Plains and the Great Lakes. So look for some showers from the Great Lakes down to the southwest. Florida also having some showers today. And the record 100-degree heat and humidity will continue in Texas. But New York, Philadelphia, and Boston and Washington will have comfortable 70s. Beautiful day along the East Coast. That is my national weather. Now here's what's happening in your neighborhood. For Anchorage, rainy skies, as it has been for most of the past 2 weeks. 64 for a high. Miami's high 91 degrees. Chicago 79. Minneapolis, St. Paul 76. Coming up next, what you can expect for your Labor Day barbecues. John.
Thank you, Joe. And the news continues in just a minute. You are watching NBC News at Sunrise.
I'm Bryant. Gumbel. All this week on Today, we're going to take a look at America's drug problem.
I'm Jane Pauley, also Pearl Bailey, Herb Alpert, and Clint Eastwood.
Join us this week on Today.
Please mail your announcement at least 2 weeks in advance to Area Announcements, WTBA, Post Office Box 350, Tupelo, Mississippi 38802.
Come home to later.
Here now are some of the stories we're following this morning on NBC News at Sunrise. A plane load of European tourists dies in a crash in Cuba. The White House won't rule out U.S. troops in Colombia's drug war. In business news, steel prices melt. Details just ahead. Today, the United States celebrates the last Labor Day of the 1980s. During the last 10 years, there have been enormous changes in the makeup of the American labor force and in the nature of work itself. Our chief economics correspondent, Irving R. Levine, takes another look this morning at some new trends in the job market and what they might mean for the future of the labor movement.
Kay Close is part of a labor phenomenon of the 1980s. She's a contingent worker. She works part-time, contingent on the needs of employers and on her own whim.
I really don't like a full-time job. I mean, I like just to work 3 or 4 days a week and then have 3 days off or something like that. Because my husband works and my children have all left home, so it's okay.
U.S. companies, stung by the recession at the onset of the 80s, have pruned payrolls of many full-time workers. About 20% of American workers now work only part-time, 1 in 5. Some because they can't find full-time work, but most by choice.
What we'll do is look for senior accounting positions for you or anything that you'd feel comfortable in, even a controller type position.
Agencies which place temporary workers, including people with professional skills, have mushroomed in the 80s.
You don't have to explain what a temporary can do anymore. People understand it, everybody's using it.
An equally striking phenomenon has been the growing number of working women. 51% of American women were in the labor force in 1979, 58% today and growing. For women workers, it's been an era of coping with special problems.
I'm a mom. I've got a husband. I've got 2 kids. It drives me crazy to try to have a professional job and do a reasonable job at being a wife and a mother and a human being in the neighborhood.
For an increasing number of mothers, like Melissa Mutkowski, a computer programmer, the solution is to work at home.
I don't have to worry that, oh my God, I have to go to work and, you know, what do I do with him now that he's sick? I can't take him to daycare sick, you know. I don't have those kinds of problems to have to deal with.
Mary Busso, like many working mothers, depends on a daycare center at her place of work. Daycare centers, a new growth industry.
It's the pressures that every working mother faces. Dressing your child in the morning, feeding it breakfast, cajoling it to wanting to come to work every day.
Even as workers' problems are being solved, new problems are shaping up for the next decade.
The birth rate has declined, and we're short on 18 to 25-year-olds, and we're going to continue to be short on 18 to 25-year-olds for the next 10 years or so.
Labor unions face even greater declines than in the past 10 years in the percentage of workers who are members. A major development in the 1980s has been the weakening of labor's strike weapon. Corporations faced with intense international competition have become less willing to compromise with strikers. There's a growing trend among management simply to fire workers who go on strike and hire new ones. That could become one of labor's biggest problems in the years ahead. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
When we come back, we'll have more news. Doug Cease of the Wall Street Journal will be here with a look ahead at Market Week, and Joe Whitty will have a last check of the Labor Day forecast. So stay with us on NBC News at Sunrise. The worst air crash in Cuban history tops our news this morning. It happened at Havana's Jose Marti Airport as a Cubana Airlines jet crashed while attempting to take off in a thunderstorm. All 126 people aboard the plane were reported killed, although there's one report this morning that there was one survivor. 63 people on the ground were injured when the Soviet-built jet tore into a neighborhood less than a mile from the airport. The plane was en route to Milan, Italy, and most of the passengers were Italian tourists. The first shipments of some $65 million in U.S. drug-fighting aid to Colombia are in Bogota this morning. 5 transport helicopters are due to arrive tomorrow. And White House Chief of Staff John Sununu says President Bush might even be willing to send American troops to fight in the drug traffic war if Colombia requests those troops.
We are sending resources to Colombia in response to President Barco's request. And the constraints on the folks and the resources that go down there are based on what President Barco would like them to do. If President Barco asks for a situation that might put Americans at risk, it's a decision the President would have to make. Well, if that request ever came in, I'm sure the President would recognize that the American public think that the drug problem is so tough and so important that there is a great feeling amongst American citizens that we probably should take even that risk.
Sununu says that he's sure the American people would support the dispatch of troops to Colombia because, in his words, the drug problem is so tough and so important. Israeli warplanes staged a rare pre-dawn raid on targets in southern Lebanon this morning. The raid apparently in response to Palestinian rocket attacks from the area last week destroyed a guerrilla base about 21 miles north of the Israeli border. And tragedy struck in the skies over Toronto Sunday during an air show at the Canadian National Exhibition. Thousands of horrified onlookers saw 2 planes from the Snowbirds military aerobatics team crash into Lake Ontario after apparently making contact in the air. One pilot is feared dead, the other parachuted to safety. In business news this morning, a 2-year low for steel prices. Slow-selling cars and appliances have dragged American steel prices to their lowest level in nearly 2 years. Analysts say prices are expected to stay weak for the rest of the year. Looking ahead now at today's market, here's the Wall Street Journal's Douglas Cease, and he's here to tell us on this holiday morning what perhaps the investors can see and look for when they come back to work tomorrow.
Well, it'll be tomorrow will be the first day of a sort of a new season. August is always a very slow time on Wall Street with people taking vacations. They're coming back tomorrow. They're going to find that the Dow Jones Industrial is at a record high. The economy seems in pretty good shape. Things look very good right now.
There were nice numbers for the most part on Friday.
Very nice numbers. We saw the leading indicators up a little bit. We saw the leading indicators were the main thing we saw. The employment report showed us that the economy is in fairly good shape, but there's some weakness in the manufacturing sector. Right now, what it looks like is that the consumer is carrying the economy more so than the manufacturing side of it.
Well, you mentioned that the Dow Jones average is now at an all-time high. Aren't people getting pretty nervous? Aren't they going to come back from vacation a little bit nervous about that high, and maybe now might be the time to take some profits?
Well, we might see a little bit of profit taking. The Dow Jones Industrial has now risen consecutively 9 weeks in a row to a high each of those 9 weeks. That's the best they've done since about 1964, I think. So there's a chance for a little bit of correction, but overall, with the economy in the shape it is, I don't see that there's going to be much of a downturn. It'll be maybe a week or 2 of down, back up again after that.
Any statistics coming out this week we should be looking for?
Not very much. Auto sales and consumer credit will be out, and those will continue to show that the consumer is indeed spending a little more freely than he was earlier in the year.
Okay, Doug Cease of the Wall Street Journal. Don't forget today's a holiday.
That's right.
All right. When we return, Drug Watch. This morning, the stories of 2 New Yorkers who tried to get drug dealers out of their neighborhoods and paid with their lives.
All over the country, people say they like Maxwell House ground coffee. They say it tastes rich. Willard Scott's angling for comments in Dallas, Texas.
Now, Inga Kirby, why do you like Maxwell House coffee?
Well, don't you know how hard it is to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning?
You bet.
I like the rich, robust taste that Maxwell House has when I go fishing on the lake.
Can I have some?
Yes, you can.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. More and more people are drinking Maxwell House. How about you? Have you tasted it yourself?
How's Mama doing?
It's already happening. People calling long distance with 1 free month of U.S. Sprint. To get your free month, call Sprint now. This is one offer that seems to be catching on.
got a flat tire. Now my stomach's on fire. My day. And my Lanta, too.
Introducing Mylanta 2 roll packs for double strength antacid relief wherever you are.
Because my life takes my Lanta, too.
I want to taste. Give me just a taste.
If you want to taste something truly sensational, just look for the NutraSweet Swirl.
Oh, you start me up. Don't ever quit. NutraSweet's the one. Give me just a little bit. Ooh, I need a taste of, yeah. NutraSweet. Give me just a taste.
NutraSweet. Why so many things taste so good.
On all of its broadcasts this week, NBC News is examining solutions to America's drug problem. Our Drug Watch report this morning comes from WNBC's Jane Hansen. She tells us about two heroes who died fighting drugs.
His young sister plays on T-Butt Avenue in the Bronx, only yards from where 18-year-old Michael Taylor died 2 months ago. He and other residents of this Bronx tenement tried to stop two brothers from smoking crack here. Michael was hacked to death with a machete.
God, give me the strength that I need right now to pull this through.
Carlos Hernandez lost his 34-year-old wife, Maria, when bullets smashed through the window of their Brooklyn apartment and hit her in the head as Maria got ready for work early one day last month. The couple had become well known on their block for trying to keep drug dealers away.
Virtually no neighborhood in New York City is untouched by drugs or the tragedy they bring. Police say if we approach dealers on a one-to-one basis, usually there's violence and usually we'll lose. But if a community bands together, it can win.
Witness Decatur Avenue in the Bronx. Children now play where drug dealers once owned the street. The community took back their neighborhood with the help of a group called the Citizens Committee for New York City.
This battle is not going to be won by pronouncements from the White House. It's going to be won when every neighborhood in America says, this is our problem. Everybody in this community's got some piece of the pie of solving it, and we've all got to get ourselves together. That's the solution.
Carlos Hernandez, who led a march of Brooklyn residents to his wife's gravesite, vows to continue his battle against drug dealers, with or without those who live beside him. Jane Hansen for NBC News, New York.
And now, with a final check of the nation's weather, here's Joe Whitty. Joe?
Thanks, John. It's been a quiet hurricane season, but we have hurricane number 4, and this one could threaten the East Coast towards the end of the week. Gabrielle formed about 5 days ago, tracking to the northwest, packing winds of 125 miles an hour, a Category 3 hurricane, again, possibly a threat by the end of the week. Barbecue weather today on this last terrific holiday of the weekend. Superb weather on the East Coast, but stormy from the Great Lakes down through the Southwest. Sizzling again, record high temperatures over 100 degrees for parts of Texas. Steamy and some showers down the deep south. Meanwhile, out in the west, beautiful, superb weather, lots of sunshine, comfortable temperatures. A touch cool at West Yellowstone this morning. Temperatures in the 30s for the late campers there. Meanwhile, sizzling 100-degree heat in the interior valleys of California, but they're used to that. Cooler 60s along the Pacific coast with plenty of sunshine. And in the Great Lakes to the northeast, very comfortable temperatures in the 70s, only Maine being a touch cooler with highs there in the 60s. Now, travelers, some possible delays today around Iowa down through Oklahoma City due to some strong thunderstorms. Have a good holiday and a safe travel, too. John?
Thank you, Joe. Well, it's a big birthday this year for Big Sky Country, and Montana Centennial has a cast of thousands. Organizers have put together the Montana Centennial Cattle Drive. 20 cowboys, 45 horses, and lots of cattle and sheep are involved. It's getting underway today in the appropriately named community of Roundup, Montana. And that's NBC News at Sunrise for this Monday morning. I'm John Palmer. Have a very good day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.